ready to go.
Excellent. Today is April 20th, 2021 of our regular council meeting, and I am calling this to order. Notice that the city council may vote to go into executive session for legal advice and discussion regarding any of the agenda items on here today. Ms. Salzberg, roll call.
Mayor Deasy.
Here.
Vice Mayor Daggett.
Here.
Councilmember Aslan.
City Clerk, I'm here, but I have to say I'm still working on being fully present while processing the news out of Minneapolis in the past hour. I feel like a lot of me, especially my heart, is spread throughout the country right now to be with all those who are feeling a sense of relief and gratitude that justice prevailed, at least on this occasion. But I am dialing in and I'll be ready to go.
Thank you, Councilmember Aslan. Councilmember McCarthy.
Here.
Councilmember Salas.
Present.
Councilmember Shimoni.
Present.
Councilmember Sweet.
Present.
So then, Councilmember Aslan, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
It would be my privilege. Please stand as you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor, our mission statement.
The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
All righty. With down to agenda item number 4, our public participation. City Clerk, do we have any public participants for this section?
Mayor, not for this section.
Yeah, yes, sorry, we do have one that just came in.
Oh, my apologies.
That's all right. I have Mr. Garcia on the phone. Mr. Garcia, you're free to comment.
Okay, hello, Mr. Mayor Deasy, Vice Mayor Daggett, Council, Management, and staff. My name is Anthony Garcia, 1113 Flowing Springs Trail, Flagstaff, Arizona. I would like to bring up the work session conversation that took place on March 30th, 2021 regarding the Downtown Connection Center. And with Joni Mitchell's song, Big Yellow Taxi, playing in the background, I'd like to address the debate concerning the paved parking spaces versus the community public space designed to serve our most vulnerable and essential workers on their daily commutes and to serve others on the Southside neighborhood. I want to make sure to mention that I fully am supportive of the Southside Neighborhood Association stand on this and all of their concerns. But I'd like to bring up some additional points, and I'm doing it prior to having a more deeper conversation in the weeks to come, because I feel like I have a little bit more than 3 minutes to share on this topic. I would like the council to consider other places in the United States that rely on this type of space, community space. And the first one that comes to mind is, through my travels, is Portland, Oregon, where the MAX yellow line meets the red line, meets the green line, meets the blue line. It's around a community park. And you'll often see bankers dressed in their suits playing their tuba after work on their way, waiting from one train to another. And the whole atmosphere of that community station and what that brings culturally to that environment. So let's move down the states to California in Fresno, where they have fax commuting, focal point of their commuting station, and it's a completely different atmosphere. And it's a lot more tense in that atmosphere, and it's all because of the design. These focal points of cultural authenticity often come up in the designing process and how we see how our community is able to utilize these spaces as we move, forward. So I just want you guys to consider other places and to see, do we want to have an atmosphere like the wonderful feeling that you get in Portland, Oregon when you get off to trade stations, or do you want to feel like you do when you're in Fresno, where it's kind of, well, for lack of a better term, not quite as friendly and as functional as a community space? So you'll hear from me again on this topic as we keep this conversation going, but I want you to consider these little nuances as we move forward. Thank you, Council, and have a good meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. That brings us down to agenda item number 5, our proclamations and recognitions. So I changed it up a little bit this time around, and because I'm not a huge fan of all the whereases and proclamations. So going a little against the grain, I figure we'd get in more in the normal people's talk rather than legal talk. So this week we have a proclamation for National Student Leadership Week that I would like to read to you all. Schools sponsor student leadership activities in order to provide students with vital experience in exercising a voice in matters of common concern, reconciling diverse interests, and selecting leaders. Student leaders are a positive influence on their peers, modeling good character and scholarship in and out of the classroom, and serve as change agents to improve the overall climate and academic performance levels of their schools. Student leaders do not automatically develop sound leadership skills and require trained, dedicated faculty, advisors to help them develop the essential traits and characteristics of a leader and to provide the positive experiences necessary to expand their skills and foster their paths to becoming effective leaders. The support of school administrators and faculty, parents, and community members is necessary to help ensure the successful education of all emerging student leaders. National Student Leadership Week serves as an ideal time to bring attention to the important and integral contributions that student leaders and all student activities make in our nation's schools. Now, therefore, I, Paul J. Deasy, as Mayor of Flagstaff, Arizona, do hereby proclaim the 3rd full week of April as Flagstaff Student Leadership Week in support of National Student Leadership Week, and urge citizens to seek opportunities to recognize student leaders in our schools and support their training and activities as they prepare themselves for their future stations as leaders of our city, state, and nation. All right, we are down to agenda item number 6, which is our appointments. 6A is our consideration of appointments for our Planning and Zoning Commission. I believe we have Councilmember Shimoni and McCarthy for that particular item.
Thank you. Yeah, good evening, everybody. It is a great honor to be appointing this individual to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is such an important commission to the city, of which all of our commission and all of our commissioners bring a lot of value to the community. Planning and zoning does play a unique role in shaping the way we grow and develop. So I want to say gratitude and thank you to everybody that applied. There's quite a few applicants that have applied in the recent past. And I want to encourage everyone out there to consider engaging in our commissions. But without any further ado, I'd like to make an appointment to a term expiring December 2023 for Ricardo Guthrie.
Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni.
I will second that. I will second that, Jim McCarthy.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Shimoni, seconded by Councilmember McCarthy. Is there any further discussion, Council? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Shimoni that we did have a good, strong list of applicants for this very important commission. And the one that I'm going to nominate is on the commission now, and she is provided good service. And I think some continuity on the commission would be good. So I hereby nominate Marie Jones for another term on the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term expiring December 2023.
And I'll second that.
I have a motion by Councilman McCarthy, seconded by Councilmember Shimoni. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. We are down to agenda item number 7. These are our consent items. Council, do I have a motion to approve all the consent items as one, or would you like to pull one out for discussion? Vice Mayor?
Mayor, this is
Oh,
Sterling Solomon, City Attorney. There is one item we would ask you to pull out. I think there is going to be some discussion about that. Maybe the Vice Mayor was going to bring that up.
well, actually, I think she was pointing out the fact that I missed 6B and jumped straight to 7A for our consent items, which is probably
Correct.
rather important since she was the one who's in charge of nominating the airport commissioner. So thank you, Vice Mayor, and I will turn it over to you for your nomination.
Great, thank you very much. First, I have a question for the city clerk. As I understand it, Eric Peterson, the chair of the Airport Commission, has resigned. And I'm wondering whether we could fill both seats today or whether we have to wait to have the second seat on the agenda.
Vice Mayor, this is Stacy. Thank you for the question. We would need to have it listed on the agenda for an official action. The other component to that is we have heard in the past from council that they like to have a good selection of candidates to choose from. And so we will be bringing this additional appointment back in hopes that we can gather a few more applications as well.
Great,
That
thank you.
answers the question. You're welcome.
So both of these individuals would serve the Airport Commission really well. And I would be happy to make a motion for either one of them. However, for this position, for a term expiring October 2021, I am going to put forward Jose Alvarado to fill the seat.
A quick question: with the current commissioner leaving, what would be the when a new commissioner is appointed? What would be the term for? Yeah, so because this October 2021, that's only 6 months away. I'm just curious with the new commissioner, when would that also be on our agenda, and for how long of a term?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to defer to my Deputy City Clerk, Stacy Fobar, to address the term of the vacant seat. And then in terms of bringing the second appointment back to council, it really kind of depends on how many applications we can get. But as soon as we get a few, we'll be happy to bring it to you as quickly as possible.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. This is Stacy Fobar, the Deputy City Clerk. Eric Peterson's term will expire also in October of 2021, so these are both for partial terms.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I do have a motion from Vice Mayor Daggett. Do I have a second for the appointment of Jose Alvarado to the Airport Commission?
I'll second.
All right, I have a seconded by Councilmember Shimoni. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, well, now we're down to agenda item 7 of our consent items. And City Attorney, you mentioned that you were wanting to pull out one specifically?
Correct, Mayor. Item 7E, I believe that's with respect to the Environmental Infrastructure Assistance Program project requests. If there are no other questions on any other items, I would recommend a motion to approve, the consent agenda items A through D, except for item E, which I think we could explain to council if you have any questions. If no questions, then a motion to approve the entire consent agenda is appropriate as well, but I think it would be better to go ahead and explain.
I think that would be good as well. Council members, do we have any consent items from A through D that you would like to pull out for further discussion before we move on to E?
So Mayor, this is Jim McCarthy. I would like to move to approve consent items 7A, B, C, and D.
All right, I will second that motion. So I have a motion by Councilmember McCarthy, seconded by myself to for consent items A through D. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. On to agenda item 7E, which is the consideration and approval of Environmental Infrastructure Assistance Program project requests. Staff recommended action is to approve the submission of a list of project requests for immediate consideration under the Environmental Infrastructure Assistance Program. City Attorney, would you like to speak to this, or would this be Nicole's wheelhouse here? Or Ms. Antonopoulos, rather.
Actually, I'm happy to speak to it, and I believe Aaron Young can do so as well. There are some items that we've included related to Red Gap Ranch and seeking funding for the feasibility and design of the pipeline that would be necessary to bring the water from Red Gap Ranch to the city. But Aaron, if you want to comment on that any further, I believe the language was provided to council prior to the meeting in email form from Sarah. If you have any questions, Aaron and I are willing to answer those. Thank you, Council.
Mayor and Council, Aaron Young, Interim Water Services Director, and I would like to add to Ms. Langley's letter that we were focusing on our capital improvement program, sort of narrowing in on the first 5-year CIP, and I hadn't looked out to the 10-year CIP where these essential projects are budgeted, which you will see Thursday and Friday this week during the budget retreat. These are projects that are feasibility and design, but should continue moving forward. So that's why we thought it was very important to include them in Ms. Langley's letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Council, do you have any questions regarding the current agendized item or the changes that that have been done to it? All right, I'm not seeing anything in the chat box, so I would like to motion to approve the submission of a list of project requests for immediate consideration under the Environmental Infrastructure Assistance Program. Do I have a second?
Mayor, actually, before you call for that, I would actually recommend that you do so as recommended by staff.
Could you explain that? I thought that was what the staff recommended was right there.
Just to amend your motion to add the additional language as recommended by staff today during the meeting.
Oh, as recommended. So I motion to approve the submission of a list of project requests for immediate consideration under the Environmental Infrastructure Assistance Program as recommended by staff today. I'm good.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
Councilmember Aslan beat you to it. I have a motion by myself, seconded by Councilmember Aslan. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, moving right along here. Agenda item number 8A, this is our routine items, and this is the consideration and adoption of ordinance number 2021-08 and resolution number 2021-13. An ordinance amending the interceptors, types, capacity, location, and maintenance for the regulation of fats, oils, and grease coming into Flagstaff's water reclamation plants, and a resolution adopting the fats, oil, and grease manual. I know we've gone over this before. Was there any additional staff presentation on this topic?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Steve Camp, Regulatory Compliance Manager. We don't have any additional information.
All right, good to know. Well, without further ado, then I would like to motion to read ordinance number 2021-06 by title only for the final time. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is that Councilmember Sweet?
It is. Sorry about that.
No worries. I didn't pop up with the highlight on my computer. So sounds good. I have a motion by myself, seconded by Councilmember Sweet. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. City Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff, Arizona, amending Flagstaff City Code Title 7, Health and Sanitation, Chapter 7-02, Wastewater Regulations by replacing Section 7-02-0001-0014 with new language regulating interceptors, types, capacity, location, and maintenance, establishing severability and establishing an effective date.
Thank you, City Clerk. With that, I'd like to motion to adopt ordinance number 2021-06. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I was seconded by
Councilmember
Councilmember Sweet. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. I'd also like to motion to adopt resolution number 2021-13. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you, Councilmember Sweet. I have a motion by myself, seconded by Councilmember Sweet. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Down to agenda item 8B. This is the consideration and adoption of ordinance number 2021-07, an ordinance amending Flagstaff City Code Section 7-02-001-0042, regulating scavenger waste, grease haulers, and scavenger waste permits. Staff recommended action is to read ordinance number 2021-07 by title only for the final time. I'd like to motion to read ordinance number 2021-07 by title only for the final time. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Vice Mayor Daggett.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Motion by myself, seconded by Vice Mayor. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. City Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff, Arizona, amending Flagstaff City Code Title 7, Health and Sanitation, Chapter 7-02, Wastewater Regulations, by replacing Section 7-02-0001-0042 with new language regulating scavenger waste and grease haulers, and adding Section 7-02-0001-0042.1 with new language regulating scavenger waste discharge permits, establishing severability, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you, City Clerk. I'd like to motion to adopt ordinance number 2021-07. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion by myself, seconded by Vice Mayor Daggett. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Down to agenda item 8C. This is the consideration and adoption of ordinance number 2021-10 and resolution number 2021-14. An ordinance amending multiple portions, Chapter 7-02, with respect to local limits for significant industrial users of the water reclamation system, and a resolution amending the enforcement response plan. Staff recommended action is to read ordinance number 2021-10 by title only for the final time. I'd like to motion to read ordinance number 2021-10 for a final time. Do I have a second?
Second, McCarthy.
A motion by myself, seconded by Councilmember McCarthy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. City Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending Flagstaff City Code Title 7, Health and Sanitation, Chapter 7-02, Wastewater Regulations by amending 7-02-001-0002 definitions, 7-02-001-0007 prohibited substances, 7-02-001-0008 standards for discharge, 7-02-001-0010 industrial self-monitoring, 7-02-001-0011 reporting requirements, 7-02-001-0016 inspections and monitoring, 7-02-001-0018 public notification, definition of significant violation, 7-02-001-0049 permits required for industrial users, 7-02-001-0050 industrial user permits, providing for severability, authority for clerical corrections, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you, Ms. Salzberg. And could, through this process, we get a tally of how many times we're requiring City Clerk to say 0? That would be appreciated. Thanks, Stacy. I'd like to motion to adopt ordinance number 2021-10. Do I have a second?
I would like to second that, including all the zeros. Jim McCarthy.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. A motion by myself, seconded by Councilmember McCarthy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. With that, I'd like to motion to adopt resolution number 2021-14. Do I have a second?
I'll second, McCarthy.
All right, a motion by myself, seconded by Councilmember McCarthy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. We are down to agenda item number 8D, and this is the concession. Oh, Ms. Salzberg, did you need a point of clarification here?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and my apologies. I may have missed on item 8A. There was a resolution that needed to be adopted as well. I think I may have missed that vote. Could I get some clarification on who made the motion and the second to adopt resolution 2021-13?
Yeah, I made the motion on that section, and so we're talking about agenda item 8A, part 4 here. I do believe that was Vice Mayor, but if I could get clarification from council who made that seconded. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm not saying my notes are absolutely accurate, but my notes reflect that Council Member Sweet made the second on that.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
Those are my notes as well, Mayor. This is Sterling.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're going with that for the, let's lead by the smart people in the room.
Thank you so much, Mayor. My apologies.
No problem. Thank you. So down to agenda item 8D, and this is consideration and adoption of ordinance number 2021-09, an ordinance amending section 7-03-001-0015 related to city water systems cross-connection control. Staff recommended action is to read ordinance number 2021-09 by title only for the final time. I would like to motion to read an ordinance number 2021-09 by title only for the final time. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Council Member Shimoni. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. City Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending Flagstaff City Code Title 7 Health and Sanitation, Chapter 7-03 City Water System Regulations by amending the language in Section 7-03-001-0015 Cross-Connection Control, providing for severability, authority for clerical corrections, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to motion to adopt ordinance number 2021-09. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Council Member Shimoni. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Moving right along here. It's nice to button up all these things we've already discussed. Agenda item number 8E is our consideration and adoption of ordinance number 2021-11, an ordinance of the City of Flagstaff amending easements on McMillan Mesa with Arizona Public Service Company, APS, and U.S. West Wireless, LLC, and approving an agreement for remediation services with APS with conditions providing for severability, authority for clerical corrections, and establishing an effective date, and consideration and approval of land restoration agreement with APS for restoration of lands affected by easement boundary changes. Staff recommended action is to read ordinance number 2021-11 by title only for the final time. I'd like to motion to read ordinance number 2021-11 by title only for the final time. Do I have a second?
This is Council Member Sweet. I second.
All right, I'm seconded by Council Member Sweet. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. City Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff approving amended easements on McMillan Mesa with Arizona Public Service Company, APS, and U.S. West Wireless, LLC, APS, with conditions providing for delegation of authority, severability, and establishing an effective date.
Excellent. Thank you, City Clerk. I'd like with that to adopt ordinance number 2021-11. Do I have a second?
I will second. Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you, Councilmember. Motion by myself, seconded by Councilmember Sweet. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. With that, I would like to motion to approve the land restoration agreement with APS to restore lands affected by the easement boundary changes. Do I have a second?
Second, McCarthy.
All right, a motion by myself, seconded by Councilmember McCarthy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. We're down to agenda item 8F, and this is the consideration and approval of a lease amendment. Lease number GS-09B-LAZ00170 to issue a notice to proceed and provide lump sum payment procedures to provide underground fiber and conduit installation for the United States Geological Survey, USGS facilities, located at 2255 North Gemini Drive, Flagstaff, Arizona 86001. Staff recommended action is to approve the lease amendment number 1 to incorporate the section 7.02 notice to proceed underground conduit installation. Staff, is there any further information on this? Or are we good to proceed?
Mayor Deasy, this is Paul Santana. I'm the IT manager over the help desk with the City of Flagstaff. I have a brief presentation if you guys would like to see it. Happy to answer any questions shortly after, if that's all right.
Yeah, that'd be great. Since it's all prepped, let's make sure the public knows what we're talking about. So that'd be good.
Perfect. So thank you again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Essentially, we're here to present agenda item 8F regarding the lease amendment with USGS, which will allow for the full reimbursement of project costs associated with this project. The second item is agenda item 8G, which is for the contract approval with Aspen Communications. Aspen is a local fiber contractor the city will be utilizing to complete the work via state cooperative contract. The United States Geological Survey project is to add a fiber connection to the USGS campus located up near Buffalo Park there on Gemini Road. Once installed, fiber run will improve their existing internet connectivity and allow them to better connect existing as well as future planned facilities. The City of Flagstaff will be managing the project as it is a city-owned property. USGS will be covering the entire project cost through reimbursement to the city. City of Flagstaff will also have access to this conduit and be able to utilize it for future city infrastructure needs, as well as possible future collaborative projects with USGS. So on the map here, the primary pathway for fiber and conduit will be run from the southwest corner of Gemini and Cooley Drive. It's going to go north along Gemini Drive, and then it's going to turn 90 degrees and head just west to the north of Building 6, and finally entering Building 6 there at the top of the screen. It will consist of approximately 1,200 linear feet of 1.5 inch interduct, 4-inch interduct, and multi-strand armored fiber optic cable. Secondary run will be a telecommunications and conduit run of approximately 260 feet on the little left portion of the screen there, which will run northeast and connect an existing DMARC fiber and telecommunications location to the south wall of Building 6. At this time, I'm here to answer any questions council may have. We also have Devin with USGS IT in the meeting if you have any specific questions for them. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Santana. Council, do we have any questions on this project? Well, I'm not seeing anything in the chat box, so with that, I'd like to motion to approve the lease amendment number 1 to incorporate the section 7.02 notice to proceed underground conduit installation. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that Vice Mayor?
Yes.
All right. I have a motion by myself, seconded by Vice Mayor Daggett. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? That motion carries. Down to agenda item 8G, connected to this, our consideration approval of contract. Approval of a cooperative purchase contract with Aspen Communications for the completion of underground conduit and fiber installation at United States Geological Survey Building 6, located at 2255 North Gemini Drive, Flagstaff, Arizona 86001. I'd like to motion to approve the agreement with Aspen Communications to provide underground conduit and fiber installation work at the USGS Building 6 in the amount of $238,676.84. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion seconded by Vice Mayor Daggett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Trying to move too quick here. I'm tripping over words.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Quick clarification here, City Attorney. Do we need to also do a motion to authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents as stated in the agenda? Is that a separate motion?
Yes, you do.
All right. With that, I would like to motion to authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Vice Mayor beat you to it. I'll just stick with Vice Mayor so I don't have to say Vice Mayor. Sorry. Seconded by Vice Mayor Daggett. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. We're moving right along here, folks. This is awesome. We are down to agenda item 9A. This is our regular agenda for the consideration and approval of contract for the Red Gap Ranch grazing lease with Bar T Bar Ranch in the amount of $50,408. Staff recommended action is to approve the grazing lease with Bar T Bar Ranch. City staff.
Mayor, council. See if this goes on. Yep. This is Mark Richardson. I'm the operations manager for water services, and I am here. I do have a brief presentation, if you would like, to show a little bit about where Red Gap Ranch is and a little bit about the grazing lease.
Yeah, that'd be great if you'd like to put that on and just let the public know what we're talking about here.
Okay, Red Gap Ranch. Let's see if I can get this page down. Red Gap Ranch is located approximately 30 miles. It is highlighted in red, so it's 30 miles to the east of Flagstaff. As you're driving out along I-40, you'll come across the Meteor City exit. That will exit and onto the center of the ranch itself. And this is one of the pictures showing the main entrance into the ranch itself and heading into headquarters. History of Red Gap. It was a 2005 bond issue to purchase for future water supplies. Purchase of Red Gap Ranch includes 8,500 acres of deeded lands. We also have 15,000 acres of state lands that are part of the ranch itself. And we hold the grazing lease from the state for that. So that is actually under the city of Flagstaff. It included with the purchase was a U.S. Department of Agricultural grant. And then we also had another grant that was for the use or boring new wells for the water supply. Red Gap Ranch, this actually shows a little bit of the ranch itself, where the red properties are city-owned properties. The blue are the state lands within the bounds of the ranch itself. The white are privately held in holdings within the ranch. The Environmental Quality Incentives Program, that was one of the grants that we had when we purchased the property. We had to add 4 water troughs for wildlife as well as for grazing animals. Part of that required us to maintain those for 10 years, and that ended in 2020 in December. We had 4 locations, as I mentioned, and then we also had to have a grazing operator as part of that lease or that program. We do have to have a grazing operator, or the city of Flagstaff needs to be grazing its own cattle. And at this point, I don't think Water Services wants to get into having its own cattle. So we would prefer having a grazing operator. These are the actual watering sites that we had. These were in addition to some of the watering holes and earthen tanks that were already existing on the property. We have a map. It does show a number of the fence lines. You can clearly see there are fence lines that were originally out on the ranch, as this was for cattle. Many of the maintenance on these fences was not done over the past 10 years since when you graze sheep, which is what was out there on the last contract, they don't utilize a free roam within a fence bound. They actually move them in and around. So cross fencing are required as part of the grazing. We actually asked for that, and the maintenance of that, there's a certain amount that has to be done every year, and that would be by the grazing operator. When we put the invitation for bid out, we looked at the Flagstaff community priorities and objectives. Integration of the grazing and the ecosystem health and land management practices were important. Flagstaff initiatives for sustainability, support the wildlife restoration, reduce livestock wildlife conflict. Again, we're looking more at stewardship, work with institutions of higher learning, provide grazing management plan for 181 animal units. And that would be 181 animal units over a full 12-month period. You can actually have more animals in a shorter period of time, and we adjust based on that. The annual fence maintenance, as I mentioned, 1 mile per year is what is a minimum requirement. And then we're looking at domestic livestock only, which could have been either cows, horses, sheep, goats, or donkeys. The highest responsible bidder was Bar T Bar Ranch. They began operation in 1939. They're located adjacent to Red Gap Ranch. They are a founding member of Diablo Trust. And in 2019, they won the Game and Fish Commission Wildlife Habitat Steward of the Year. They do cattle as part of their livestock, and their total bid was $50,408 per year. And with that, I open it up if you have any questions.
Council members, do we have any questions here? City Manager Clifton has a comment.
Thank you. Before you take action on this, Mr. Mayor and Council, I just want to extend some thanks to many people who have been involved in this. This is a second go around on having this leasehold, this grazing leasehold filled, and there's been considerable effort. I want to thank Mark Richardson and his team for moving this along, but also very much in the mix was the procurement team, a lot of heavy lift there, and as always is the case, excellent navigation by our legal team. A real group effort. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilmember McCarthy, you have a motion?
Yes, I do. I'd like to move to approve the grazing lease with Bar T Bar Ranch and to authorize the city manager to execute the necessary documents.
Mayor, this is Councilmember Aslan. Notwithstanding how much I'd love to see Interim Director Aaron Young take on substantial new herdsmanship responsibilities, I will second that motion.
Thank you, council members. I have a motion by Councilmember McCarthy, seconded by Councilmember Aslan. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, we are down to agenda item. Where are we at here? Oh, there we go. 9B, and this is the consideration and adoption of resolution number 2021-15, a resolution approving the City of Flagstaff's 2021-2025 consolidated plan and authorizing its submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The consideration and adoption of resolution number 2021-16, a resolution approving the City of Flagstaff's 2021 analysis of impediments to fair housing choice and authorizing its submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the consideration and adoption of resolution number 2021-17, a resolution approving the City of Flagstaff 2021-2022 annual action plan and authorizing its submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The staff recommended action is to read all three of those resolutions by title only.
Hi, Mayor,
Yes.
DC, and Council. This is Christine from the Housing section, and I am here to answer any questions you guys might have.
Thank you much. Council, do we have any questions regarding these filings with HUD? Councilmember?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember.
Yeah, I indicated in the chat box. I have a question to staff in terms of the involvement of the neighborhood associations in developing the consolidated plan and the annual plan.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we did keep the same target neighborhoods as we did before. And so usually we work with Sunnyside Neighborhood Association, the Southside Community Association, and the La Plaza Vieja Neighborhood Association. We did not specifically hold one-on-one meetings with them. We did have about 9 public meetings from August until February. And then we've recently spoken with them about how we can kind of brainstorm ideas about what the neighborhoods need and how we can incorporate those specific projects into the annual action plans. So the consolidated plan kind of sets the goals of high priority of neighborhood revitalization and projects for target neighborhoods. And then the annual action plan will talk about what those specific projects are and what those neighborhood associations see as the greatest needs in those projects. So we look forward to continuing to work with them to identify what those are for the next 5 years.
Yeah, a follow-up, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Are you saying that the neighborhood associations, specifically La Plaza Vieja, Southside Neighborhood Association, and the Sunnyside Neighborhood Association were involved in developing the consolidated plan and the annual action plan?
They were not involved directly, no. So they were, all of the public meetings were public and they were welcome to attend. They were involved as far as being able to provide public comment and join for those focus groups, but we did not have one-on-one meetings with those neighborhood associations.
Okay, so is it accurate for me to make an observation that the neighborhood associations were not able to provide meaningful input in these plans?
You know, I would say that it would have been beneficial to have one-on-one time with them, but the public participation process was very broad. There were advertisements in the Daily Sun and on Facebook and through the continuum of care, you know, inviting anyone in the public, including the neighborhood associations, to participate in the development of the con plan. So I would say that they were welcome and able to provide that comment and that participation, but we did not, you know, seek out just their opinions, if that makes sense.
I understand, and I see that in the report, the different public meetings, but I am just concerned that the neighborhood associations were not directly contacted, maybe due to COVID, but I am just observing that there was no direct involvement and indirect input from these neighborhood associations, and we identify all three neighborhoods, including Pinal, as our high priority, and yet they were not contacted for their input. So I just want to put that on the record, and I hope in the future, there will be deliberate, mindful effort in involving all of our neighborhood associations in developing CDBG HUD programs, and of course, when it comes to neighborhood revitalization.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Salas, for bringing that up. Councilmember Shimoni has a question.
Thank you, Mayor and Highness Public. Thank you for being with us. I appreciate what Councilmember Salas brought up. It was brought to my attention too that these neighborhoods weren't specifically communicated to, and I guess my question is there a certain timeline we're trying to beat with this effort tonight? And would it be possible to potentially delay the submittal or this discussion for however long it takes, a couple weeks to a month, I would assume, to allow you the time to really sit down? Because maybe you can speak to this, especially for the newer council meetings. We receive those CDBG funds because of these specific target neighborhoods, correct?
No, we are allowed to identify target neighborhoods where we can concentrate those funds and where we can make certain projects more eligible. So for example, if we were going to do, street improvements like we are in La Plaza Vieja, we could only do those projects and call it eligible through a public benefit in those target neighborhoods. We would not be able to do those projects in other neighborhoods because they're not designated as low income and minority concentration.
Okay, so CDBG funds that we do receive aren't necessarily only specifically for those neighborhoods. You're saying there's a broader umbrella that they kind of serve the community at large, but along with those neighborhoods, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Would you be open, I'm just curious, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but would you be open to delaying this discussion tonight and sitting down with those different neighborhood groups?
I'm definitely open to discussing with them. We are under a bit of a timeline. We have to have everything submitted by May 15th. So we would just need to make sure that we could come back to you at a council meeting prior to that with a little cushion for me to do some of that entry for any changes we make.
So I guess this is a comment to Mayor and City Manager and Stacy, our City Clerk. If that was possible, assuming there was council support, I would be interested in that. I'm not too sure how our agendas look and if it's possible to squeeze this on. I can't imagine this being too much of a conversation when we bring it back forward. But yeah, I see our City Manager has a comment. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. City Manager?
I will defer to Ms. Costa, and then I'll respond afterward. I think Justina will probably enlighten us as to what the possibilities are in addition to what Christina said, and I could wrap up at the end. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Thank you. Good evening, Council. Justina Costa, I'm your housing manager. I just wanted to jump in here and let you know that Christine's answer is beautiful, but I just wanted to put a little bit more emphasis on the fact that the public outreach process that was conducted for these plans is extremely intensive, and we as staff feel comfortable in saying that every member of the public had the opportunity to comment and to attend the focus groups. There were many focus groups. There was a lengthy public comment period as required by HUD. So like Christine mentioned, we did not set up one-on-one meetings with the neighborhood associations. However, those neighborhood associations are listed on the email correspondence that goes out. They are included in the continuum of care group that we communicate with. And so, just so you know, that just because we didn't have individual meetings with them, there was plenty of opportunity. I, as staff, would say I feel comfortable in the fact that every member of the public had ample time and opportunity to reach out to us. In addition, my hesitancy with delaying this process is that if you look at the documents that are attached to the agenda, those documents are lengthy, and I mean, some of them are upwards of 150 pages that Christine has to finalize and prepare for submittal to HUD by May 15th. And coming back to you at a later time, although we will do as you wish, it would put us in a very tight timeline to get that finalized and submitted to HUD, not only because it is a written document, but also because all the information also has to be input into what's called IDIS. It's a system that HUD uses, an electronic system. And so, like I said, we will do as you wish. However, preference would be that we receive guidance from you tonight. Thank you.
Mayor, I'll just conclude and just say I appreciate that, Ms. Costa. Yeah, this is tough. If I'm being, completely honest, I feel that extra outreach is important. I think that, the Southside Neighborhood Association, just all the different groups would really appreciate it. City Manager, I know you have a comment. I'm willing to see this move forward tonight, Council, but if there is support for delaying that, or if others see the value, I do too. Thank you.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I might be a little premature with my comments. Maybe Council wants to deliberate a bit on this and give us direction. I was going to respond to how we would proceed if there is direction to solicit that one-on-one feedback, but I think I would rather Council follow through on the discussion. You've had input from staff. It's a very important discussion, and I will await your direction. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. I personally think that it would be a good thing to do to reach out to the Southside Community Association, La Plaza Vieja, and Sunnyside before we put our full stamp of approval on this. I've also been contacted about some concerns regarding that, and but just knowing that this current product has to be done by that specific time. So changes and deliberations need to be pretty concise on what any changes may be, given the length of documentation that Ms. Pavlik would have to go through in our Flagstaff team. So with that, Councilmember McCarthy has a comment.
So I think it's significant that we were told that all of these neighborhood organizations, La Plaza Vieja, Southside, were notified that they had an opportunity to comment. And considering that, I think we should move on tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. Well, with that, do we have any other comments or questions from Council before we put this up to a vote, whether we'll delay or approve this as intended tonight? I am not seeing any further, so Councilmember Salas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for the meaningful discussion, and thank you to our housing section staff. I do recognize all the great work that you've done so far and your efforts in reaching out to every member of the community. And as I mentioned earlier, it was there was a lack of input from all the neighborhood associations, not only one, but all three neighborhood associations. And that to me seems to needs some additional outreach to pursue transparency and accountability, and also buy-in from our neighborhood associations, especially when they represent, the priority neighborhoods as we have outlined in the two plans. So I think it's about restoring the trust of the neighborhood associations to the city processes. Just last year, I have made deliberate attempts to as my fair item is to reach out to the different neighborhood associations, and we have received some presentation from La Plaza Vieja and Southside. We haven't yet received a presentation from Sunnyside, and I look forward to that. And I was also wanting to revive the League of Neighborhood Associations. So, you know, if it's just an additional 2 weeks just to get their input and not totally, you know, dismissing or discounting all your work, just this additional outreach to our neighborhood associations will be meaningful, not only to the neighborhood associations impacted, but throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas. Councilmember Shimoni, you have a motion?
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, Councilmember Salas, I agree with you. I think that Ms. Pavlik and our staff has done an incredible job with this document. I'm very excited about the work that has been put into this, and I am very excited about moving this forward. But Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we just delay the reading on the 3 resolutions until and bring this item back after we do the public outreach. Sterling, is that the proper way to phrase what it is I'm looking to do?
It would be to postpone, not to table, because table would be under the rules of procedure required to come back at the next meeting.
Okay, so the postpone, I move to postpone 9B.
Yeah, let's.
Sorry, would we be able to get on the May 4th working calendar for that? Stacey?
That's what I was going to just suggest, is that let's set that date specifically for May 4th, 2 weeks from now, to make sure we give time for edits. And City Manager, a comment?
Well, if I may, procedurally, Adam would need to include that date in his motion, and we don't have a second yet.
That's right. City Manager, did you want to comment before we do that, or?
Well, my comment is only to the sequencing of this. We have, by my count, 3 more meetings before the deadline, and I think it would be preferable to have a little bit of a margin. So I think the May 4th date is a good one. Our city clerk, I'm sure, is consulting her calendar as we're speaking. And if May 4th, for some reason, does not work, we can hear from her. Otherwise, I think that would be a good target date, and thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Ms. Salzberg, could you confirm before we see about potentially putting a motion for that specific date?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, May 4th is available for these items.
Excellent, thank you. Councilmember Shimoni, then, would you like to withdraw your prior motion and set a new motion that says that specific date for the postponement?
Yeah, I would. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to withdraw my prior motion and move forward a motion to postpone agenda item 9B until May 4th.
I'd like to second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye, McCarthy.
Thank you. That
actually, I guess I should have said nay, McCarthy.
We got you. We're connected. All right. That motion carries then. We are now.
And sorry, Mayor, this is Sterling again. We do need to identify that it carried and who voted against. That's all.
Okay. Yes, I think we have 6-1 with Councilmember McCarthy being the 1. Is that correct? I only heard one no. Yeah. All right. Thank you all. We are now down to agenda item number 8, or is it 9C? Consideration and adoption of ordinance number 2021-06, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Flagstaff amending the Flagstaff zoning map to rezone approximately 11 acres of real property generally located at 151 West High Country Trail, APNs 112-05-001W and 112-05-011 from the estate residential ER zone to the medium density residential MR zone, with conditions providing for severability, authority for clerical corrections, and establishing an effective date. Staff recommended action is the staff recommended that the Planning and Zoning Commission forward the direct to ordinance zoning map amendment request to the City Council with a recommendation for approval in accordance with the findings presented in the attached report. City staff.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Alexandra Pucciarelli, current Planning Manager. I actually recently received a request from the applicant for a continuance of 2 weeks on this project. So that would put us at the May 4th meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Pucciarelli. Well, with that, then I would like to motion to postpone this for 2 weeks for our May 4th council meeting. Do I have a second? Sounds like I had a second from Councilmember Shimoni. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Oh, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just, if you would, note that those who submitted requests to speak tonight would be allowed to speak at the May 4th meeting as well.
Certainly, and my apologies. Ms. Salzberg, do we have individuals, how many individuals do we have to speak to this item this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. We have 6 individuals that had signed up to speak tonight.
Okay, well, since they are signed up to speak before, I think it would be best to get the public participants in for this before we postpone and do a vote for it, since they are already requested to speak on this item.
Actually, Mayor Sterling, again, City Attorney, I would actually recommend that they be allowed to speak at the next meeting unless they have some circumstance that doesn't allow them to attend on May 4th, simply so it can be fresh in council's mind when you actually hear the remainder of the presentations and actually take action that night. That's just a recommendation. Obviously, it's up to you ultimately.
Thank you, City Attorney. Well, with that, then, I think it would be wise to do this all together when it's fresh in our minds, when we have all the information at hand. So with that, well, I think that would be the best option here. So I would like to motion to postpone this for 2 weeks for the May 4th and make sure that we let the individuals know who are wanting to discuss this tonight that it will be brought up in 2 weeks.
I'll second that.
All right. I have a motion by myself, seconded by Councilmember Shimoni. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Ms. Salzberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to announce to the public commenters that may be watching on the stream that we do have your requests to speak documented, and there is no need to submit another request to speak. Wanted to just let folks know that that's kind of how it is. Any new commenters would need to submit a request. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification, Ms. Salzberg. I appreciate that. And if you could also make sure that though they may have it already, that all the commentators also have our emails, so that way they can send written comment as well in the interim for the next 2 weeks. All right. Well, holy moly, how we have gone quick through these. Well, that was like 1,400 pages of agenda items. I think that with that, it would be good to let's just take a quick break, and then we'll wrap up the rest of this here in just a minute. So, council, let's just do 10 minutes. So at 4:26, we will be right back here. Sound good? Excellent.
You are good to go.
All right. We are down to agenda item number 10, which is our council liaison reports. So we'll go down the cool kids list here and start with, let's go back. Let's start with Vice Mayor Daggett.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Housing Commission continues to be very busy, and the 6 subgroups that I have talked about before have been meeting regularly, and I've been sitting in on all the meetings that I can fit into my schedule. And the draft plan is going to be coming up for public input, I believe, beginning in May. If not May, then June. And it should come before council in September. So I really encourage the public to make sure they get involved and read the draft plan and give their comment. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Council Member Estlin.
Mayor, I don't have a liaison report today.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is probably the appropriate time to bring this up. I was involved in a trip to Washington, D.C. Of course, that was virtual. And you were there, Mayor, and Mr. Shimoni and I. And we met with the Forest Service, we met with the Army Corps of Engineers, we met with the FAA, we met with most, if not all, of the delegation, the congresspersons from Arizona and the 2 senators. In some cases, the actual representatives. In other cases, it was with staff. But I just say in general that it was very.
Heather, thanks.
I just say in general they were very productive meetings. And we got a couple tips on where to, how to help our cause. And we have passed those on to staff. And so it was very productive and it was a good trip. I guess the only thing we missed this time was eating in some of those fine restaurants in Washington. So that's it for today. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. Yeah, I feel we had a very productive meetings on our virtual lobbying trip that I was fortunate to be able to be there with Councilmember McCarthy and Councilmember Shimoni and advocating for everything from, our Rio to Flag primarily to our Lone Tree Corridor to airport to wildfire prevention and broadband. So we really pressed a lot of big issues for us in the community and trying to troubleshoot how to find some funding to see all these things to fruition. So I appreciate Councilman McCarthy and Shimoni's advocacy in those meetings. Moving along here to Councilmember Salas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. April 8th, we had the Airport Commission meeting and the numbers are looking promising. Employments actually exceeded the 2019 numbers. And then the fixed base operator, which is the fuel sales, is back to pre-COVID. Thanks to the increasing clientele in private and corporate aircrafts flying in and out of Flagstaff Pulliam Airport and buying fuel from Weissman Aviation. Of note, The Airport Commission heard from the sustainability staff, Mr. Ramon Dizi Alatorre, about the draft carbon neutrality plan. And there was some discussion on the parking lot and the airport manager position that is being filled. And then yesterday, I attended the Parks and Recreation Commission. Sustainability staff also, Mr. Alatorre was there to present the carbon neutrality plan to the Parks and Rec Commission. The commission also discussed the old Parks and Rec master plan and looking into developing a new one, pending budget approval. And they're also looking at reviewing the recreation cost recovery policy, and then a wish list for some projects that will be presented to council on the budget retreat, during the budget retreat this Thursday and Friday. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple things. The CJCC met recently, and the city manager report talks to this a little bit, but the CJCC group met, and it's the internal group that met, and we're working through our bylaws. There was interest by the group to learn more about the city's RFP and the steps that we're taking. And also there was support for what we're doing. And then there's also discussions of a future retreat for the CJCC to continue to kind of do some soul searching and figure out how we want to best move forward collectively. And then lastly, I'll just mention on the CJCC that there is talk of a joint funded position between the city and the county that we'll be discussing at our budget retreat. So I look forward to that. The Indigenous Commission met a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't report on this last week, so I want to make sure to give you all a quick update on them this week. And there was a great discussion had on climate and climate change, and that topic was presented to the commission by Jenny Newman from the city. So thank you, Jenny. Great presentation and great discussion. And then there was this talk about the roles and responsibilities of the commissioners, and they came up with a regular time to meet, and they're going to be looking into some of the growth trends in the city at their next meeting as well. Mountain Lions Board is meeting tomorrow, so I look forward to giving you updates on that. And then lastly, I just wanted to say that, correct, Councilman McCarthy and Mayor, we did have a good lobbying trip, and we talked to a lot of people in a really short amount of time. And Mayor, you did a great job. And Jim, Councilman McCarthy, and staff, thank you. Special thank you to Sarah Langley at the city, Bob Holmes and Anna with our consultant company. And yeah, I thought it was a really good executed trip, and we got our message across. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Sweet.
Thank you, Mayor. I am going to save my updates for next time. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Sweet. With that, with all of our federal lobbying trips, I haven't been able to make a liaison meeting this last week, so I hope to report back on our next liaison reports, which then takes us to agenda item number 11, our future agenda item requests. 11A is future agenda item request, a citizen's petition requesting the closure of Woody Way to cut through traffic, allowing emergency access only. Do we have the primary petitioner present to present, or Ms. Holford?
Hi, Mayor. Yes, we do. We have Ms. Brianne Hall. She is on the line. She is the petitioner for this particular item. And Ms. Hall, if you would like to provide your comments now, you certainly can. You do have 3 minutes. I do believe you're calling in on the phone. You may have to hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Muted?
We can hear you.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So my name is Brian Hall. I'm a longtime resident of Flagstaff. My parents went to NAU. I've lived here almost my entire life. And I'm raising 2 small children in the neighborhood of Boulder Point, in which my husband or I have lived in that neighborhood for over 18 years. I'm petitioning the city to close Woody Way, the short and narrow road connecting Boulder Point and Presidio and the Pines neighborhoods. Plain and simple, the opening of Woody Way has impacted many residents of Boulder Point negatively and decreased the safety of our neighborhood. The residents who live along University, Highland Mesa, and Axe Handle are not only dealing with increased traffic, increased speeding, we're also dealing with an increase in noise. Those 3 things are actually the least of my worries as a mother. What we are dealing with is a public safety issue. There are at least 17 children that play at my home regularly and that live along this route. These children walk and ride their bikes regularly through the intersection I will speak about. I'm only going to mention incidents where there's either police reports or videos documenting them. Once in December and also once in January, the stop sign at the intersection of Highland Mesa and Axe Handle was hit hard enough by out-of-control drivers to be knocked over. These 2 incidents happened within 25 days of each other. Both were caused by vehicles leaving the road surface in a residential area. And both of these vehicles came from the Presidio neighborhood via Woody Way. We have video footage of many people almost hitting the stop sign, but instead violently striking the curb. The curbs in our neighborhood are broken to pieces because of so many out-of-control vehicles. On March 3rd, we were rudely awakened at 2:06 a.m. by a truck hopping the curb and hitting the landscape rock in front of our home. The truck proceeded to drag this 400-pound rock over my children's sidewalk chalk art into the Presidio neighborhood by a Woody Way, leaving the giant rock in the middle of the road. The city had to come out at 4 a.m. with a tractor and return the rock to our front yard, and thankfully they did, because less than 10 days later, another driver hopped the curb and went into our front yard, hitting the same landscape rock again. This is in front of a house where a child that is 4 and 7 live. I have sent all the city council members videos of a 3-hour time period in which 7 drivers lost control of their vehicles in the intersection of Woody Way and Highland Mesa. All 7 of these vehicles came from or entered the Presidio neighborhood via Woody Way. Axe Handle and Woody Way were designed by traffic engineers to be 26 feet wide as a traffic calming feature. Unfortunately, because the roads are only 26 feet wide, it makes it very dangerous for the volume of traffic that is now traveling down Woody Way and Axe Handle. Presidio residents will argue that this cut through saves them time and is more convenient for them. And if they are obeying traffic control devices such as the stop signs and going the posted speed limit, cutting through Boulder Point to go to Walmart saves them 2 minutes at best. Unfortunately, many are not going the speed limit and most are not stopping at the posted stop signs. My child has to cross Axe Handle and Highland Mesa to get to his bus stop every day, and so do many other children that reside in our neighborhood. It terrifies me as a mother.
My apologies. We're at the 3-minute mark, but
that's okay. That's all right.
Thank you. Councilmember Shimoni has a question for you.
Sure.
Mayor, and thank you. Quick question for you. So are you under the impression that these individuals are drinking and driving, or why?
No, actually, none of the vehicles that we have filed police reports have been under the influence of alcohol. They're all just trying to take a shortcut through the neighborhood, and they're just going out of control speeds.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can look at the police report of the car that drug a 400-pound rock from my front yard into Presidio, and that individual was not under the influence, just a poor driver.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, council member. Rest of council, do we have any questions for the speaker before we turn it to other public participants? I'm not seeing any more at this time. Thank you, Ms. Hall.
Thank you.
Ms. Salzberg, do we have other guest speakers on this issue?
Mr. Jason Corbett, you may please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Councils. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. Like Ms. Hall, my wife and I are residents and live on Axe Handle, 3 streets down from Woody Way. The main points of concern, we walk our dog, run in the neighborhood very regularly, at least twice each day. I work from home and have a porch that faces Woody Way, and have noticed since we've lived here for 8 years an incredible increase of traffic on Woody Way, an increase in speed in the traffic. And then for the intersection in question, I'm going to add another one. So Woody Way, Axe Handle, and then Axe Handle and University has turned into what I consider to be an inherently dangerous intersection due to, again, the increase in volume of traffic, the rate of speed in traffic, and then the drivers who are just not paying attention at all. I've almost been struck there at 8 different occasions, 5 of which the drivers were clearly distracted and had their noses in their cell phones as they presumed that the intersection would be vacant of pedestrian, four-legged traffic, or perhaps bicycles, as they've probably seen so many times on their commute and cutting through the neighborhood. You know, prior to Woody Way being opened, this was not a problem. The street was nice and quiet. It had residential traffic only. I would also like to add that Axe Handle is indeed a bus route, and as Ms. Hall had mentioned, there's quite a few children that play on the street. And then adding to that, there's those of us that are adults that are regularly moving around the neighborhood. Boulder Point is a very active neighborhood. I greatly appreciate the number of sidewalks here. It's what part of what makes living in Flagstaff such a wonderful place. But the opening of that street, specifically Woody Way, has markedly decreased the livability and perceived safety of the neighborhood. And I know the specious arguments coming from our neighbors over in Presidio that they're doing it just to save time, but it's really just a couple minutes of time. And I would certainly argue that public safety trumps saving just a few minutes from somebody's commute. So thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to comment, and I'm very much in favor of closing Woody Way and then having some sort of a barrier there that would allow emergency vehicles to come through. I don't believe in the argument of it needing to be used as a secondary escape route. I strongly believe in the professionals that work with the U.S. Forest Service, the City of Flagstaff, and then all the other agencies here that keep us safe from the threat of wildfire. If there was such an occasion, the gate could be easily opened. But again, strongly in favor of closing it to continued residential traffic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Corbett. Do we have any questions or comments of the speaker at this time, Council? All right, next caller.
I have Mr. Garrett Hall here. Mr. Hall, you can go ahead and speak.
Hi, thank you for your time to council. The reason that this was brought is definitely a public safety issue. I think that we've got many incidences of people driving out of control, and that seems to be more of the norm. What we'll see is that we talked about this stuff back in 2005, before the neighborhood was even built, as a concern. The city of Flagstaff kind of kicked it down the road and said, well, we'll see how it happens when it opens. We'll do a traffic study and everything like that. Well, that time is now, and I think that those traffic studies will reveal that these streets are at a very increased amount of traffic volume. For the width of 26 feet wide, I think that we're probably getting the same amount of traffic as, say, Ponderosa Trails gets on High Country Trail. I think that we get more traffic than actually University Heights Drive too. This is a 26-foot wide road that when people go through there, the noise that's been increased is actually very disturbing too, because when people are leaving the road surface and running into your property and hitting things in your yard, every noise that happens, every time a contractor drives by and a toolbox rolls over in their truck because they're on the gas, you have to go out and look. It's unsettling to everybody just living there. Also, because the streets are so narrow, this is all happening within 40 feet of everybody's homes. Our neighborhood was not designed for the homes to be back a ways from the street. We're all very close to those streets too. So it's also increased danger that way, because the higher speeds and people, volume of traffic coming through could, once they leave the road surface, there's not a lot to stop those people from hitting somebody's home. I think that all the traffic commission that we talked about back in 2005, they were talking about putting in medians and circles and things like that. Those still don't address the issue that the road is actually only 26 feet wide. That will end up having even more narrowing of those streets. And if people can't avoid hitting a stop sign and a fixed object that is literally there on their commute every day, I don't think that those traffic calming features are going to do a lot of good to mitigate that. I think that you'll notice in our neighborhood, if you've ever been through there on a drive, you'll see a lot of people walking dogs and a lot of kids riding bicycles and everything like that. And I also think that that plays into the public safety equation here, because there are a lot of people who are solely focused on where they're going and getting there in a good amount of time. I think that this doesn't go along with a lot of the initiatives that we've been hearing from the city of Flagstaff in terms of sustainability and transportation and public transportation and minimizing car trips. Everybody that goes through there is generally in a car by themselves too. They're taking 7 and 8 trips per day. The same vehicle will go back and forth. So I think that if you had to think about, it takes a little bit longer of a time, maybe that would be have people consolidate trips, which would also be greener and safer for those people too. But in the meantime, I would be in favor of closing this thing as a mitigation measure. I don't think that our neighborhood was designed with this in mind. I think it was more of an afterthought, and I don't think that it's good for the residents. I don't think that it's good for the city. It's going to cost a lot of money in traffic calming measures. It's going to cost a lot of money in people setting up stop signs again and temporary stop signs and replacing curbs and gutters and things that have been damaged by this. Also, it's
Thank you, Mr. Hall. We've run out of the 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Hall. But Councilmember Shimoni does have a question for you. So, Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your comments. So, did I hear you correctly? You think that if we did close this gate, people would start carpooling?
Well, I think that it would encourage carpooling, or at least have you think about the trips that you're taking. Because if people are just driving back and forth and they're going out to get one thing at Walmart and then they come back and then they go get one thing at McDonald's and they come back, and then there's a lot of students that drive back and forth constantly 8 times a day. And there's no public transportation route that goes through there. So maybe it would actually encourage people to ride bicycles down that route if it's truly a shortcut. But I think that it would be more sustainable too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember, and thank you, Mr. Hall. Next caller, please.
Mayor and Council, I have Clifford Globby on the line. Clifford, you can speak.
Okay. You hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Yeah, you were breaking up a little bit.
We can hear you. So go right ahead.
Okay, you want me to speak now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead. You may go ahead, sir.
Oh, yeah, it's Cliff Swaby. I live over in Boulder Point on Highland Mesa Drive. And since they opened up Woody Mountain Way, there's been a huge amount of traffic and noise outside my window all day long. And I'm sure your numbers really don't show the impact of this. With the opening of this road, there's basically no benefit to our neighborhood, just the opposite. As people have said, there's been an increase in traffic, and which poses a big safety hazard to the people walking through here and our children. We have narrow streets that become single lanes at times with parked cars, and more traffic only makes it worse. We have speeding issues to the point where they're considering traffic calming procedures in the roadway on University Avenue. There's also ongoing construction in Presidio, so the course of the traffic problem is only going to get worse, not better. If Woody Way is closed, emergency vehicles from the firehouse on Thompson Road can still get there just as fast or faster on Route 66. And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Sobe. Council, do we have any questions or comments? Thank you. Next caller, please.
Mr. Jason Nackard, could you please go ahead? You have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Hi. So I built my house on the corner of Highland Mesa and Axe Handle in 2003. And when I built my home, there was no Woody Way. I think it was a utility easement, although I don't have the plat for that section because actually I'm in a different section. And many of us were concerned when the first incarnation of the Presidio was proposed. We were concerned that a significant portion of the traffic would opt to go through the narrow streets of our neighborhood. So we voiced our concerns to City Council and P&Z at the time, which was like over 15 years ago. And the best they could come up with was to put several provisions in the Presidio Development Agreement to study the impact at a later date. So it was basically kicking the can down the road. And a lot of us were disappointed, but it was better than nothing at the time. And right now, there is currently a traffic study underway. And looking at the traffic study that was done before the gate was put up, I think the traffic in front of my house was between 100 and 200 vehicles per day. And I sat out in my driveway and counted vehicles for 15 minutes, multiplied it by 4, and numerous times gotten anywhere between 60 to 100 vehicles per hour coming and going into the Presidio. So I believe that the traffic study will eventually show that the volume of traffic through this neighborhood has risen substantially in a neighborhood that has dozens of small kids playing in it. And just for reference, on that same traffic study, it looked like the traffic on University was about 1,000 vehicles per day. And I would guess that the traffic in front of my house is probably, I would guess it's actually approaching that level now, on roads that are much narrower and not, I don't know if they're designed for it, but I wouldn't guess they are. It isn't only the volume of traffic that's the problem. Many of the drivers using to cut through they drive well over the speed limit and don't stop at the stop signs. The stop sign in front of my house, actually in front of Cliff, who you just heard in front of his house, was run over twice this winter by people driving way too fast in the snow. The curbs on both sides of the corner are both cracked from vehicles impacting them, and they're probably need to be replaced, I would guess. About 3 weeks ago, I was awoken to the sound of a drunk driver running over my neighbor's yard and pushing a 500-pound boulder that was in their yard 3 blocks down the street. And I believe many people in my neighborhood are pretty fed up with the constant stream of drivers. A lot of them are kids playing their radios, driving too fast, don't stop at stop signs. And we believe that there's a very real safety concern for there's a lot of kids in this neighborhood. And it doesn't seem like that this volume of traffic that's going through here is appropriate for it. So, I don't know.
Thank you. Your
save 1 to 2 minutes.
Sir, that's your time.
Safety and quality of life here. So that's basically what you are.
Sir.
Thank you for your comments. Apologies, your 3 minutes are up right now. Council, do we have any questions of the current speaker? I'm not seeing anything in the chat box, so thank you for your time. So with that, I believe that is our last speaker, if I'm correct, Ms. Fobar?
Yes, Mayor.
All right. Well, with that, I would like to turn it in internally here for council discussion to see if there's support for putting this onto a future agenda. So council, if you'd like to chime in. Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I'll point out that I only live one house away from where all this traffic is funneled through. I live on Fresh Air Street right at Highland Mesa. And I've lived there for 18 years. So I think I would support having a discussion on this, but I also want to, out of deference to my neighbors, but I would like to point out some of the history that I know since I've been in the middle of this this whole time. So there was a discussion at council on this years ago. And just by chance, I was at that meeting. And council made a decision. The decision they made is that the gate would be put across this pass-through, Woody Way, and that it would be left there until construction was done. I believe the actual decision at that point was 5 years. But then because Presidio was developed so slowly, staff made a decision to say, well, we'll keep that closed until 90% of the Presidio is constructed. And so at this point, over 90% of the Presidio has been constructed. So the city did open the gate. So the people that live in Presidio, when they bought their houses, were told by the salespeople that that gate would be opened after construction was completed. And that had some credibility because City Council had made that very decision. And so I think we do have some responsibility to stand by a decision that the council made and that people made decisions in their personal life based upon that. I have been told that the opening of that street was actually in the development agreement for Presidio. I have not verified that. If this does go to further council discussion, we definitely should look into that and see if it is in the DA. Just to kind of put this in perspective, I measured off from the gate, which was closed and is now open, over to Woody Mountain and Route 66, which is the added distance people would have to drive if they were not allowed to cut through Boulder Point. And that distance is 0.9 miles. And of course, once they get on Route 66, they'd probably have to go another mile or so to get over where they would come out of Boulder Point right now. My recollection is that street through was always there ever since I've lived in, I actually have lived here 18 years, but I had a house in Boulder Point 2 years before that when I lived in Phoenix, had a weekender house up here and walked it there. My recollection is that street has been there all along, and then it was gated and then discussed at City Council, and the decision was made to leave it gated until the construction was essentially complete. So that's kind of the background that I have on it, having lived so close to it. Yes, there is more traffic going through there now than there was. I don't know if cars are going faster or not. I don't have any data on that. So anyway, that's kind of the background that I have on it, having lived very close, about a block and a half away from where this gate would be put back up if we decided to do that. So unless anybody has any questions, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember McCarthy, for your insight. I also want to thank all the community members who called in and signed the petition. So I guess my thought is that we have reckless driving and speeding all across town. This is not an isolated incident. This occurs on the east side, on the south side, on the north side, on the west side. It occurs on every side. And Council, I want us to be careful as to how we decide to move forward when it comes to mitigating these types of issues. And what neighborhoods are we focusing on first and with most of our energy? What voices and what communities won't reach out to us and organize the way the neighbors in this area did? Not to take anything away from the community that did engage with us. I really do appreciate your advocacy. I think we have an issue across the city. And from my research and working with staff and the members of the public that have brought this up to my attention is that there are design standards that help mitigate traffic. For example, speed bumps don't work, and we know that that's the case. Our expertise will say that, but we do know that there are design standards and approaches that do work. And so, Council, I would be interested in having this discussion if we talked about it broadly across the community at large, rather than one incident, and how to best mitigate this type of reckless driving and speeding. So, Sterling, I'm not sure if we're able to amend this because of the way it was brought forward as a citizen's petition, but assuming it wasn't, I would be happy to bring forward a fair item or work with staff or City Manager Clifton in figuring out how to bring this forward in the future for us to talk about. But Sterling, can you let me know? We can't adjust the current fare, correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Shimoni, and Council, no, we can't change the language in a petition that has come to you. You can move this forward for discussion with 3 council members tonight, or you can bring a different fare, and you can bring a different fare. You can do both. It's up to you. But you can't change the language in a petition, no.
Okay, so that's my thoughts, Mayor and Council. So I'd like to hear what other council members think, but I plan to vote no. But I do recognize the weight of this issue across the city, and we do need to address this. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Vice Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Well said, Councilmember Shimoni. I too, if we were to take up this issue, would actually, instead of considering the closure, I would prefer that we, and recognizing that this would have to be a separate thing on the agenda, that we ask staff to look into it and come to us with some suggestions for traffic calming, rather than us as a body considering the closure of this road. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Aslan.
Yeah, okay, it seems like, once again, we have more than one conversation starting up on this topic, and I'd like to focus on Woody Way right now. It seems to me that what we're surfacing and our community is bringing to us a very real, tangible problem that sounds like a nightmare, actually. And I can appreciate how this occupies a lot of mental space for folks who live in the path of this new issue. I don't know that the gate on Woody Way is the boogeyman here. It seems to me that we have a special traffic problem, and I would love to figure out some specific solutions for that specific neighborhood and the way that those roads work right there, where we have people crashing into stop signs and breaking curbs and dragging boulders all over the place. This seems like a real problem that we need to address. I do not think that the way we should address it is by opening up a citywide conversation about traffic. I think the city of Flagstaff has 100 years of discipline in figuring out how to move cars back and forth through town, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. But we do have a spot fire here that we should address, and I'm not convinced that the gate itself or the throughway is the particular issue, but I would be interested in helping these neighbors identify what the problem is and mitigate that problem. So I think we should move forward with this and see what we surface, and maybe working specifically with city traffic staff, we can sort of triage this and diagnose it, and then move forward on that count. And as these issues come up, other community members will bring them to us, and there are different ways of doing that. These concerns can rise up through dialogue with city staff. They can rise up through conversations with council members. They can be brought forward to us through petitions. I think there's a variety of ways that people can engage specific traffic issues, and I think it's kind of organic, and it's nice that there's different pathways. I don't think we need a larger conversation. I think we need to address this problem and be receptive to other community neighborhoods that are bringing us traffic issues now and on to the future. It's always going to be a problem here and there for different reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. City Attorney.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you, Mayor. When I mentioned that it could come up separately for other areas of town other than Woody Way, this petition is what it is for Woody Way. A council member could bring up a fare, or obviously staff could work with the city manager to, put an item on the agenda if that's what the city manager wants to do with respect to a broader issue. I just wanted to clarify that as well. It doesn't have to go through a fair process.
Thank you, City Attorney. Well, with that in mind, given the wording of this fair is specifically closure of Woody Way to cut through traffic allowing emergency access only, if putting this fair forward, it means that we're looking to close or not close. Personally, I see this as a more could be handled more administratively through mitigation standard or mitigation measures. I'll give you an example. I used to live on Zuni, right when JW Powell was built, and people were still zooming by my neighborhood, and it was dangerous and very concerning. So then the speed bumps got put in, didn't work as well as expected. So they put all the stop signs in, and then people stopped going through that intersection. And then eventually they were able to pull out those stop signs because people came more cultured to going the other direction down JW Powell. So I can understand, especially living on a busy road with young kids and so forth, how that is a very, very, very serious concern. And to me, I'm not interested in moving this forward as such, how it's phrased as a fair to close that road. I think that we can administratively try to mitigate some of those negative externalities from having that road there. And that would be my preferred approach, is to have a police vehicle or put up a speed limit sensor right on the road, whatever it may be. But I think there's other ways to mitigate this, and closing off a road that's built for that purpose and we have a lot of money put into, I think, is maybe throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of situation. So that's where I stand, but I would like to circle back also with other council members and see where, if this fair, we'd like to see this fair put forward to close or not close, as opposed to maybe seeing if the city staff can provide some options for alternative mitigation for that particular roadway. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree, and I would like to see staff at some time in the near future bring some suggestions to us or meet with the residents there and find some solutions other than the closure of this road.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Right now, I'm not seeing a tally to move forward for this item to go forward as a policy fair request. And again, this is a very serious issue. Just how it's procedurally framed in here as the fair, I don't see moving forward on closing this road as opposed to creating some mitigation standards that could be done through a different avenue. Councilmember Aslan?
Oh, yeah, thank you. No, I'm just, to clarify, I think we should look into what is causing those issues over there, but not be too prescriptive overly prescriptive at the outset on how to fix the problem. I hear the residents, and it sounds like this is a real problem, and I would probably be very upset about it if I lived in that immediate area and was dealing with it too. So I'm happy to marshal any resources we can at identifying exactly what's going on and mitigating it.
Thank you, council member. City manager, can we have city staff, I know there's folks who have been working on this, but to make sure we are putting it at high attention for what mitigations can be put in place there to resolve some of these issues and do it through an administrative capacity, as opposed to a policy capacity where we're at.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, and thank you for a thoughtful discussion. Yes, we will evaluate and come up with some mitigation strategies. I think we'll check in with Council before we implement those, just because I know it's of high interest, but you can expect that to happen.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilmember McCarthy, comment?
Yeah, just some more background. I can tell you that at this very moment, there are rubber hoses across the street that is measuring how many cars go through there. So that's already being done. And this is on an agenda coming up for the Transportation Commission. And there are definite plans to be put some speed mitigation structures in University Avenue, which is where all this traffic goes through. Admittedly, that won't be right at the intersection that we're talking about, but it's in the same neighborhood. And other things that have been done in this neighborhood before are larger 25-mile-an-hour speed signs and those temporary automated radar devices the police puts up, and if you're going over the speed limit, it flashes the speed at you. And that has been done in this neighborhood, as has been done in other neighborhoods. So just some more added information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. Well, with that, Council, do we have anyone else would like to comment or further? I am not seeing a tally to move this back onto a future agenda, unless otherwise noted. Well, let's be sure that we keep our finger on the pulse and really make sure that mitigation standards are put into place in this location. It is a very serious issue, particularly as father of young children. I know how, and currently on a busy road, that is a very serious concern and a public safety issue. So let's make sure we are attentive to this and are finding some measures that we can slow down traffic and help with public safety on that stretch of road. And I'm not seeing anything further in the chat box here. So with that, give it another second. With that, we are down to agenda item number 12, which is our city manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. While the report this time around was relatively brief, it is appended with numerous updates. So altogether, it's a fairly large report. I will not go through it in detail, but as always, we'll invite your questions or comments. The report itself talks about our water services division and some recent changes there. You'll find that of interest. Also appended to the report, and with great gratitude toward our city clerk's office and Stacy Fobar in particular, is the inaugural boards and commissions newsletter. And there's an update in there from housing commission, sustainability, and perhaps others. I would invite you to give that a read. I know that many of you have liaison positions with our boards and commissions. And you give reports to your colleagues accordingly. This might be considered a little bit more of a comprehensive update as to what's going on with our boards and commissions, and we hope it's not redundant, but rather very helpful to know what these very important commissions are, the topics that they are wrestling with. This report also has the April capital improvement update. It's a very thorough update with a lot of great pictures and illustrations. It's preceded with a map to give you a nice location bearing on all of these projects. And then also, and lastly, we have a legislative update, pardon me, appended to this. And I thought I would include that as well. That's from Elevated Advocacy, who helps us out at the state level. Of course, council gets periodic updates from both Todd Medexa and our own intergovernmental staff expert, Sarah Langley. And these happen with some regularity lately, as there's a lot of things to report on. Anyway, this is a written update for you as well, and should keep you apprised of things that are happening at the State House. Does council have any questions or comments?
Council, Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually just closed my notes, so I'm actually opening it up really quick. City Manager, excellent report. I was so grateful to see all the different Deputy Clerk Stacy Farr, incredible, bravo. I think that Boards and Commission newsletter is amazing, and I'm looking forward to reading each and every one that is put out. Wanted to give a special shout out to Aaron Young, who is stepping up in our water department and really filling some huge roles. And so, Aaron, thank you so much for your continued dedication and service to Team Flag and to the city. That is huge, and we are very grateful to have you on our roster as one of our staff members. So thank you. And then, City Manager, on the topic of the circus, we got an email talking about the lack of communication about public safety in the promotion of the circus. And I'm wondering if we can reach out to the mall and to the circus and see if they can incorporate maybe our mask up logo from Discover Flagstaff, working with Heidi and her team, getting that logo to them so they can help promote social distancing and mask wearing, because that is going to draw quite a number of people. And then lastly, I also want to just give a quick shout out to the Housing Commission, and who is working on a housing plan, and all the 6 different groups that have been formulated, of which Vice Mayor Daggett spoke to. You all are crushing it. I am so excited about your work and what it is that you're going to be bringing forward. Keep up the good work, and I'm looking forward to seeing it at the council level. And lastly, thank you to Rick Barrett and his capital improvement team for that update. That was great information. My only other comment on that, City Manager, if Rick could include the list of projects that aren't necessarily progressing, maybe just as just a bullet point list, doesn't have to go into any detail, just so the council and the public knows what's in the pipeline and what is yet to come at a future date. City Manager, if you have any comments, I'd love to hear them, but those were my comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could respond briefly, yes, on the added outreach to the circus, I'm already seeing in the chat column a response from Heidi Hansen that we will be happy to reach out with some of our branding and help them in the outreach. We all, I think, share the common goal of wanting to see the return of our special events done quite successfully and with an eye toward caution and precaution, and we'll do our part. We did want to inform you of all of this and the CDC efforts that are being taken, because I know it's of high interest to the council. Councilmember Shimoni, on the suggestion about the capital improvements update, I was smiling as you were saying that, because it was at my direction that we took out the dormant projects and focused just on those that were active. But I think we can reach a happy medium here and focus on the ones that are active, and then provide a short list of those that are in some state of dormancy or waiting to be performed, just so you know what's coming down the pipe. So we will work on that. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Deputy City Manager Dilly has a comment.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and Councilmember Shimoni. Even though we did move some of the updates out of that list that didn't seem to have much of a material update for council, the idea of having that map provided, part of that idea was to show council all of the active projects, whether they're active in design, active in planning, or active in construction. Not all projects have a material update, but that map does show all of the active projects and show a comprehensive view of all that the city is doing in support of building quality of life for our community. So that was the intent behind that comprehensive map. Thank you.
Okay, and looking at that now, Mayor, that will suffice, City Manager, for my request. So whether that's included in the report or just as part of the map, I'm good either way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Anyone else regarding the City Manager report before we press on here? All right. Well, then that brings us to agenda item number 13, which is our informational items and reports from council and staff and future agenda item requests. I will go in reverse order. I'm going to have to get one of these randomizers sometimes, so that way I don't always have to call on the same people every time. But we'll do reverse order here. Councilmember Sweet, you have any to from info that's tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I wanted to say is that Earth Day is coming up on the 22nd, and I look forward to participating in drawing attention to our climate emergency. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Shimoni.
Well, shoot. Okay, so not a whole lot to say, but good meeting, quick meeting. Thank you, Mayor, for hustling us through that. That was great. My only comments are that we have a joint meeting with the county on the 26th of April. It's a Monday, and there is going to be information about that on the city website under the agendas if it isn't there already. And then I also wanted to remind the public that this Thursday and Friday is our budget retreat. And if you go to the city website, there's a lot of great information about priority-based budgeting, or PBB, which is our new style of budgeting that we've adopted. And this priority-based budgeting website, which is live right now and linked on our city website, clearly allows you, the user, to navigate the budget very easily and digestible. And it's just a great tool that I'm really looking forward to seeing how that's going to be utilized in the years to come, including this year. So budget retreat is Thursday and Friday, starting at 8:30 in the morning and going till early in the afternoon. And you can tune in online. There's public comments, and the agenda is also has links to the presentations and whatnot on our website. And then lastly, City Manager, I just wanted to echo the request for a conversation in the future about traffic mitigation strategies. This might be part of the ATMP, Active Transportation Master Plan conversation. And yeah, however we would like to bring that forward, I think that would be of value to all of us in the community. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Salas.
In addition to Earth Day, in 2 days, this week is also National Park Week. So National Park Week is a time to explore amazing places, discover stories of history and culture, help out and connect, #FindYourPark, celebrate the benefits of being outside, whatever that is, and connecting to nature, #Healthy Parks, Healthy People, #Power of Parks for Health. Explore your park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas. Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'd just like to echo the comments made by Miranda Sweet about Earth Day and a good time to focus on what's happening to our atmosphere. Thank you.
Councilmember. Councilmember Aslan.
Thank you. National parks, don't forget that we have some amazing national monuments right here in our backyard. We've got Walnut Canyon National Monument and Sunset Crater in Wapatki. These are always my favorite places to send visitors because it's the most pleasant surprise that they didn't expect to come across. In addition, of course, to the Grand Canyon. I wasn't going to provide much of an update, but we're early in the evening here, and so I think I'll take a minute to do it. You know, if you don't know that I'm a nerd by now, then you're about to find out. You know, it's a good time to be a nerd. I grew up dreaming one day that the geek shall inherit the earth, and with our Marvel MCU universe and all the other great things we got going on in movies and other venues, it feels nice to have strong numbers out there. And one of the things that I like to do that might surprise you is I do play Pokemon Go. And you might be surprised to know that there's actually a fairly robust Pokemon Go community here in Flagstaff. lots of players. And this week they are doing something through the Pokemon company Niantic called Sustainability Week. And in-game rewards are going to be opened to players who post onto social evidence of doing things in their community, like neighborhood cleanups and other activities. And I took it upon myself to coordinate with Nicole Antonopoulos over in our sustainability department division to make resources available for Pokemon Go players looking to participate in these activities. And she very graciously came up with a plan that we could share resources and provide trash bags and grabber tools and vests for Pokemon Go players this week who want to coordinate cleanup pickup events. So looking forward to seeing how many groups out there, how many Pokemon trainers take advantage of the opportunity to have some fun and clean up our neighborhood and get some in-game rewards while doing it. And I'll leave my update there for now. But very excited for Earth Day and all these activities. And the sustainability group is doing a lot of other stuff as well, I think, for this week as usual, and unfortunately can't be doing as much of it in person as we would all like to, but there are definitely ways to still get involved. And I wanted to say the person to contact for those activities is Maggie Twomey, and you can find her email, or she has a phone number, 928-214-2144. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. That sounds awesome and fun. And I'm glad you coordinated. That's smart. I appreciate that. We are to Councilmember McCarthy. Wait, no, we just went there. We're up to Vice Mayor Daggett.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to remind everyone that anyone aged 16 or older can now be vaccinated at NAU at the vaccination clinic that's being held there. And I received both doses, and it really wasn't, other than a headache and being kind of tired, it wasn't any big deal. So I just encourage and urge Flagstaff residents to get vaccinated. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Well, we have been getting quite a few emails regarding policing, alternate policing, and our upcoming budget session. And I recognize the passion and the interest in this topic, and that we need to have a good discussion about this in a very transparent manner. And I want to hear what everyone has to say, and I can probably speak for council to say we want to hear from you in a direct manner regarding this. The budget session on Thursday and Friday is something that we're going to be covering a lot of things, everything from water services to solid waste to potential bond measures next year. There's a lot to go over in those two-day period. And I think that this is a topic regarding policing should be done as a really a one-shot or a single issue agenda. And next week, let's expect to be having a special meeting of council to discuss this directly and dive into this, because with all the interest that we were seeing from emails and calls and so forth, I think it is pertinent for us to have a really solid discussion. Sterling, our city attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As I understand it, you're calling for a special meeting. Of course, that's allowed under the rules of procedure. The mayor or 3 council members or the city manager can call a special meeting. I understand the topic that you've asked that it be on policing. One thing I will say here is it's not really up for discussion whether or not we should or shouldn't have a special meeting. You've called it. It's just a question of maybe you can talk about availability of people, but not to get into a discussion about whether we should or shouldn't have one, because you've already called it.
Yeah, certainly. My apologies. That was not my intent. The question is really when, but I do feel that it is a pertinent time to be having a single issue discussion on this topic, especially with the very big interest, passion that we see in the community regarding it. So with that, that's my main thing I wanted to touch base on before we adjourn the meeting. So, Councilmember Shimoni?
City Attorney Sterling, am I allowed to ask a question about the special meeting without getting into the conversation?
Again, it wouldn't be about, the topic of the special meeting.
Right.
The special meeting will be when that occurs, but that's the guideline I would give.
Okay, so here's my question, Mayor and Sterling and everybody. I guess my question is, Mayor, I'm happy to see us have a special meeting. That's fine. My question is, how does that impact our Friday discussion on policing and police budgeting? Are we basically going to have like an update and then make a decision at that special meeting rather than making that decision on Friday? I'm just curious, and I see the city manager has chimed in.
Can I take a stab at this, Mayor?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Council Member. So as the Mayor made mention, and as most on Council is aware from previous retreats, and for some of you, we had a retreat earlier this spring, but you have not had the pleasure of having the 2-day across the spectrum budget retreat, which is the topic for Thursday and Friday. When I say across the spectrum, we will be hearing from every division, Councilmember Shimoni, police being one of them. We have structured the alternate response program to be a part of the agenda because there are resources being planned for that program. You know that well because you're at the table on the many meetings related to that. So that will be called out for discussion in the context of not necessarily policing per se, but with possible revenue sources that are now in play, the excise tax from recreational marijuana and a number of other things. Very important topic, but I want to restate what the mayor alluded to already. It is a packed 2-day retreat. We at the staff level have probably met about 4 or 5 times to formulate this agenda, and we'll be conducting this retreat with the assistance of a facilitator, Nicole Lance, and we're grateful for her services. We do that because there's a lot of ground to cover, and so many topics that all serve to inform the council regarding things like revenue projections. Where are we economically? You will hear about an update to the recession plan status, an update as to where we are economically and what lies ahead, staffing updates, equipment updates, facilities updates, and the list goes on and on. Why do I mention this? It just all leads to the point that while these are open meetings, and indeed there will be time at the end of the sessions on both Thursday and Friday for public comment, they're a little bit more about looking at the big picture of the organization, the totality of everything through the budget lens, and then focusing on a couple of special programs that are now emerging. Again, alternate response being one of them, but there are others. So we invite public comment at the end. We have historically not garnered a lot of public comment in these public meetings. Every now and then we'll have a comment. We always encourage our residents, our citizens to be engaged in what's happening budgetarily because it's so critically important. I do agree with the mayor's strategy here to single out a specific meeting to talk about police funding because I'm also reading the emails and we know there's a lot of public engagement in this. Not just in Flagstaff. We want the discussion to be informed and we certainly want it to be transparent. If we were to embed that discussion within the context of a 2-day budget retreat, I do fear that it would be lost to most of the public, and it would be kind of buried beneath a lot of other stuff, not all of which will connect to this particular topic. So Mayor, I know I'm offering my opinion here and getting a little bit beyond the discussion that was, or the question that was asked, but I do think the special meeting approach to this is a worthy one, and will, I think, help ease the burden time-wise and content-wise on the budget retreat that's coming up. I don't know if that answered your question, Councilmember Shimoni, and I apologize for the long-winded response.
That is helpful. And Mayor, in terms of scheduling, next week, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday afternoon, evening could work for me, just so you know. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Councilmember, and thank you, City Manager. Yeah, we had discussed this before, and things of this large of concern shouldn't just be a 45-minute segment within a two 8-hour days of budget discussions. So I really want this to be done in a transparent manner, that we have a full discussion with the community, and it's a time that day that we can have the civic engagement needed on such an important topic. So thank you, City Manager, and I'll have our city clerk make sure that the time works for our schedules, and that we give the public proper notification on when that's going to be. So with that, I believe that I'm all finished up here, and this meeting is adjourned. So thank you all for a good meeting. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.